Hello and welcome back. Tonight we're going to season a pork butt to put into the smoker for tomorrow. It's important to season the pork butt overnight and let it sit in air, exposed to air, in the refrigerator, and this forms what we call a pellicle around the meat and allows the smoke to stick to the meat better. Okay, we're going to start by toasting some spices. We've got some cumin, maybe a teaspoon. We've got some coriander, which is the seed of the cilantro plant, maybe about half a teaspoon. We've got some celery seed, about half of a teaspoon or so. We'll throw in a clove. And we'll peel and throw in one cardamon pod. Cardamon's a spice that has kind of a peppery, sweet notes to it. I find it quite nice. Adds a little bit of something different. And to toast, we are going to go onto the heat here, and we're going to let it go until it just starts smoking, and then we'll take it off. Alright, now that I have toasted the spices, I'm going to throw them into the spice grinder. I'm going to include some black pepper. Freshly ground black pepper has a lot of oils that are volatile, or pepper rather has a lot of oils that are volatile, and as it's ground and left sitting out, those oils evaporate and you lose some of your peppery flavor. Alright, I like to do about a 2-to-1 ratio of sweet to salt in a barbecue rub. So I've got some brown sugar, light brown sugar for my sweet. I'm going to do about half a cup of that. And this is a 1/4 cup. And then salt, like I said, the 1 ratio. I'm going to add my toasted ground spices and pepper, and we're going to give that a stir. To this, I'm also going to add some Coleman's mustard, maybe about a tablespoon, about a tablespoon of oregano, half a teaspoon of thyme, and about a tablespoon of paprika. And I'm going to mix that together. Okay, I have my spice mixture mixed up, and I put on a pair of gloves. I think it makes this part a little easier, especially when I need to clean this up in just a little bit. First, I'm going to start with just some good old yellow mustard, and I'm going to give Mr. Pork Butt a nice rub in mustard. This will help all the spices stick to it, which is what we want. And also adds another layer of flavor. Okay, so the pork butt is nice and covered in mayonnaise, in yellow mustard. So now we're just going to add on our rub. I'm not really pounding it in. I've got plenty of rub. I just really want a nice coating of it all around. Alright, and like I was saying earlier, we do want anything that we're going to smoke to kind of rest overnight in the refrigerator exposed to air. And this allows what we call a pellicle to form on the surface of the meat, which allows the smoke to adhere better. Alright, and of course with the glove, it comes off and hands are clean, so I can pause the camera. Okay, so I have just an aluminum half hotel pan, which this little guy is going to rest in overnight, and will actually cook or smoke the pork butt, at least for the first part of the process, in the pan here. That'll allow us to collect some of the juices, which we'll use later on. I've used those juices in coleslaw, I've used them in macaroni and cheese, anything I want to also add a smoky flavor to. So this guy's going in the refrigerator, and we'll see how things turn out tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. We're back at it the next day at 8 a.m. We're going to get this pork butt into the smoker for a 8-hour smoke. So that'll get us to dinner around 4 or 5. We are going to do about 4 hours uncovered, and then we're going to do about 4 hours covered, wrapped up really tight, and I'll show you that. Okay, we're outside with the smoker now, and what I have is a master-built electric smoker. It's one of their lower end models, but it really does everything, and I can already hear the comments. Charcoal, blah, 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 blah. But if you cook with charcoal, that's fine. I personally would like to do other things with my 8 hours while this is smoking rather than 10 charcoals. But the electric smoker works well for me. Perfect consistent temperature, good level of smoke. I come out here every so often and I dump a few little pellets back into there. Not really pellets, but we've got chips of apple wood in this case. It has a hopper, so I don't even have to open it to put the chips in. This little smoker does everything. It's got a cold smoker attachment, which I do like smoking salmon and cheeses during the winter time. So there's nothing that I haven't been able to do with this smoker. I've just got one little grate in there right now. I've got a little pan for water to keep some moisture, and we'll be putting the pork butt in there in just a second. Okay, so I am out here to put the pork butt in here. You might see Bullet walking around or hear him. He's going to be my assistant today. And he's going to keep an eye on the smoker while I'm not out here. Now, we have it set to 275, and we're going to leave it there with the pork butt in there for about 4 hours or so. Really till the internal temperature gets to about 150, and then we're going to wrap it up and let it continue cooking in there till the internal temperature gets about 180, 190. That's going to be a good temperature for the meat to start kind of falling apart and give you that good shredded barbecue look and feel and taste. I think the biggest mistake people will make, especially with electric smokers, is they will pour on too much smoke at first. And then you end up with a taste on your meat that's kind of like, you know how if you have a fire pit and you dump a bunch of water on it to put out the coals, that wet coal smell. I think you kind of end up with a little bit of that flavor on the meat if you add too much smoke especially at first. So we're just going to add our little wood chips that have been soaking in some water. That helps them burn a little more evenly and slowly. I've got my flue wide open, and that's basically all we're going to do. Everyone, we are back, and the pork shoulder has been in the smoker for about 5 hours now. The temperature internally has come up to about 150, 160 degrees. So we are going to wrap this thing up really tight to seal in all those juices, and then we're going to continue to bring the temperature up to about 180, 190. And that's going to break down the meat just enough so you get that lovely fall off the bone barbecue texture. If you'll notice, I have the pork shoulder, Boston butt, and I have my little wrapping station set up. I'm going to actually use plastic film because plastic film is actually safe to about 250 degrees in the oven. And this is really going to give us the seal that I want. Now, of course, you can use a lot of things. You can use aluminum foil, you can use butcher paper. I do have a little piece of parchment paper right here that I'm just going to help with making sure like any bone doesn't pierce through the plastic wrap. And this is pretty much the same technique that I will use for ribs, though ribs aren't going to cook as long. If I'm doing ribs, I'm going to use kind of a 3-2-1 method, which you'll probably see on the internet. It works pretty well, and basically it's 3 hours uncovered, 2 hours covered, and 1 hour uncovered. That last hour, sometimes I'll actually move it to the grill if I'm grilling anything else to heat it up, or if I'm doing ribs the next day and I want to have the smoking done, I'll do that last hour on the grill to heat it up. So this is going to go back into our smoker. If you remember, I told you that plastic wrap is good up to about 250 degrees. So I have turned down the smoker to 240 degrees. And this is pretty heavy duty plastic wrap right here. It is food safe. It's obviously you can see it's a industrial or restaurant food service film roll. I buy it because it lasts for almost two years in most cases. It doesn't go bad, so it seems like a good investment. Now, we have all this wonderful juice that is smoky and delicious, and we can use that for a lot of things. One, when I shred the when I shred the pork later, I'm going to add this lovely juice back into it just to give it some more smoky flavor and barbecue flavor. I've added this, a few tablespoons of this to macaroni and cheese to have a nice smoky macaroni and cheese. I even tried it with coleslaw to have a barbecue coleslaw, and it wasn't too bad. So this is just smoky gold right here. So we're going to set that aside for later. And next time we see you, we will be shredding the barbecue. I'm going to go get this back in the smoker. Okay, we are done smoking the pork butt, and we're going to shred it. You can see that the saran wrap stayed intact while it was in the smoker, so it didn't cause any problems there. What I've done here is I've put a cutting board inside of a half sheet pan because this will get messy and this will make for easier cleanup. Look at that. After we pulled this out of the smoker, we did let it rest for about 30 minutes. And you can see just with this, it is falling apart. We're going to take 2 forks